Hey everyone, welcome to Stages Podcast. I am so excited that you're listening to our podcast, and I am super pumped to be here with my wife, Shara Heiniger, the beautiful Shara Heiniger. So this is a podcast that we are entitling Resurgence, and then I guess the subtitle would be, what do you do when cancer comes back? So I guess we would start with a little bit of an update, because I don't, the last you may have heard, we're kind of, on the other side of some of these things, and they had gone in and had a surgery and removed tumors from my colon and from my liver. And it looked like we were kind of putting some cancer for a little bit in our rearview mirror. We knew that we'd get scans and you have to keep checking and those things. And so in that sense, you're not fully, done with cancer, but at the same time, we thought we'd have some time. So fast forward to surgery happens. I'm in the midst of recovery. I have a little bit of an awkward pain in my back in a place that I've never had that kind of pain before. So we advocated for ourselves, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that in this episode, but we advocated for ourselves and brought it up to our oncology team. They ordered a CAT scan, and then that CAT scan is actually where they found that the cancer had come back and that it's aggressive. So do you want me to I think the first thing that we should probably tell our audience is just about HER2. Do you think that's probably a good idea? All right. So my cancer in particular has a marker, and I'm not going to go into super big detail because I could, but I don't think anyone wants to hear everything. The HER2 marker is basically a marker. They first discovered it in breast cancer. And so certain types of breast cancer have that HER2 marker. And what it does is it tells the body to clone those cells and double. So 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32, that kind of thing. And so it makes the cancer extremely aggressive. But on the other hand, it can also be used as a marker that they can target. So we can create what's called HER2 inhibitors, which is the drug that I'm going to be on, and it is like
you
an
just
injection.
Told me I needed to memorize
It's an injection that I'm going to have in my thigh, and it's the is it Felgos? I think it's Felgos. And so, but it's this injection that basically is this inhibitors. It's nothing like chemo in any way, shape, or form. There are some side effects that it could have, some toxicity to the heart over time and different things like that, but they're not expecting too much in the way of side effects. Although he did say that it could cause an itching rash on your thigh, which is something I'll look forward to.
Yay.
Because I don't know, but I feel like
you've missed that in your life.
I may just happen to get that one. Who knows? I just like can't. Hopefully I get a win there, but yes. So but besides the injection site thing and long-term heart stuff, and it actually is all reversible. So if we took it off the drug because of heart issues, it would take a few months, but my heart would bounce back and be fine. So it's not like it's doing permanent damage to my heart. So,
but it's specifically targeting the HER2.
Yeah, so it's addressing the aggressiveness, and because those cancer cells have that marker, it is like going full force to try to kill that cancer. So it's kind of nice in that, like with chemo is kind of a general idea, so it kills good and bad and affects your whole body and different things like that. So hopefully a lot better physically as we kind of walk into this treatment. So we'll see. I want to knock on wood, but Shara would remind me that when I lean on the table, it makes the camera vibrate. So if you see the camera vibrating, it's her fault, not mine.
I don't have any hands on
that. Okay, fine. But so let's talk about the real thing that everyone wants to hear, because I think it's so important with stages to get the caregiver's perspective, right? So you went through a huge roller coaster ride of, hey, we're done with this, you know, we kicked the crap out of cancer, celebration, all those things. And I just want to say those are completely valid. The celebration was deserved, that it's not something that you should ever just, you know, because sometimes I think we don't celebrate things because we're worried that something else will, you know, the boot's going to drop or something like that. And I just think that's a terrible way to live. Just celebrate it. If the boot drops, the boot drops, right? There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing I can do about it. So then you just have to kind of deal with things as they come. But so let's hear from you, because I've blabbed this entire time. So from a caregiver, a wife, you know, that has to go through this in a totally different way, what was this discovery of this cancer coming back like for you?
I think one of the things that we've really worked on during this process was, one, like you said, when we had that moment where we thought we were cancer free, celebrating, but also once we found out that the news right now wasn't good, I extended myself grace. Like, I asked for half a day off from work, and I just let myself like feel the feelings, and also just rest for a little bit. And then I've also shared with friends that are close to me the battle that's in front of us. I feel like often we have to tell people we haven't like lost our faith in God. It's just a blow. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. It's not you know, doubting that God can keep you alive and keep you healthy, but also just, you know, after it being one way for so long and our thinking being that way, it's a mind shift. Mm-hmm. And it's also sort of like again. So let's be honest.
So let me go back, because I know this is going to be uncomfortable for you, but I think it's important here. You said you gave yourself a half day, you know, and you let yourself feel all the feelings. I think a lot of people would like to know, like, honestly, what were some of those feelings?
Just worry, not wanting life without you. I want you to survive this, and
that's a miracle.
Serious, for being serious right
okay,
now.
Okay, sorry.
Just like I said, recognizing the heaviness of taking that back on, going back into you know, the building for chemo that we haven't been in, because the last time I was talking to you about being in that building, I was being honorary with you, but trying to get you to ring the bell and have that as part of your celebration of being done with cancer. And now we're going back in the same building to get a shot in the leg and fight one, a different strain of cancer, and then a more aggressive cancer. So it's like battle 2 or battle 55. You know, it just feels, it's a lot, and it's something that if I don't manage or like take time to deal with, or just like give myself grace, like, you know what, I can't do that right now, you know, different things like that, then it can really get overwhelming.
Were you ever angry? Were you angry?
Yes.
Was it at me? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But like, we're just angry in general? Were you angry at God? Did you get?
The interesting thing too is you apologized. Like, after you have different phases where you apologize for like the life that we have and how hard it is and different things. And all of that is nothing that you can control. So I always try to tell myself that as well when it comes to me, and acknowledging that it is hard and that I do have like all the emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. So We, I think one of the other disruptions that people who are listening, who may have loved ones that are, fighting cancer, they might be a cancer fighter themselves, and you haven't yet gone through this. I think one of the things you just have to kind of get ready for when you have a resurgence is just, it's going to be a week or two of chaos, because when your cancer comes back, and if it's really aggressive, the oncology team, and rightly so, are trying to get and expedite a lot of different things, right? But these oncology doctors are very busy, and so are their teams. And it's not like you can just turn on a dime and say order a PET scan and everybody just moves their schedule. So I think with us both trying to balance work and trying to get work done and everything, it was, I think, one of the biggest, most challenging weeks was this week, because I think I was at the hospital 6 or 7, maybe 8 times. I mean, so we went in once to have the first time I ever met my new oncologist, Dr. Chang. And so that was our first meeting, and then we're discussing, okay, look at the CAT scan, but we didn't have the PET scan results yet. So we could kind of, like, well, if this is confirmed, then this is what we'll do. And so he talked about the HER2 markers and stuff like that. But then it was, you have to get it, oh, with this new treatment, you have to get an EKG. And so I was going in for an EKG, and then you got to have your PET scan, and then you have to have a consult. Then you get the findings from the PET scan, and the EKG, has some things. And that's one thing that you just have to, I think, understand in all of this, is that you've really got to do a good job of, again, advocating for yourself and seeking answers and understanding. And we've always found the doctors and the staff to always be good at doing that. You got to ask for it, and sometimes you got to be the aggressor, so to speak, on trying to get those answers, because they're very busy. But they're happy to give them and sit down with you and kind of go through them. Because if you don't do that, then you're reading those things, and like some of that stuff doesn't make sense, or you look at it as way worse. Like I saw something on the PET scan that says something about this. So the CAT scan, and you don't get these scans all mixed up, but the CAT scan isn't as accurate, doesn't necessarily mean cancer. It just says, okay, we've got some points of concern. But a lot of insurance companies require that first, because the PET scan is more expensive and more detailed. And so you have to get one before you get the other. The CAT scan saw something in my liver, which to us was maddening, not at any particular person, but it's just like, we were just in there like weeks ago.
Yep.
So like, then you go from mad to worried and anxious, because you're thinking, well, there's no way it could have been there. I mean, it was right on the dome of there's no way that Dr. Hammer didn't see it. So then it must be moving fast. It's super aggressive. But then we got the PET scan, and there was a little mention, but it was all scientific terms, and I didn't. So I was like, oh crud, it's still there. And the PET scan, but then when I got it explained today to me, they said, actually, that may be just like a small beginning of a cyst or something. We'll keep an eye on it, because it certainly could, go into a tumor or something like that. But right now, that is not cancer. They put that glucose or whatever into your thing, because cancer cells metabolize sugar. And so they kind of have that connected to whatever glow in the dark magic fluid. I'm just gonna,
which was really funny the first time you had a PET scan, because every part of your body lights up because it's processing the glucose. So 2 years ago almost now, I thought you had cancer everywhere.
Yeah.
And that I could not sleep that night.
Because there are some things where they'll just keep an eye on something, but you could have inflammation, or you could have something going on. And so for whatever reason, so I had some joints on my shoulder and some stuff like that that was lighting up, but ended up not being a thing, right? And so we were fine. But now we've got concerns, because the PET scan did find new places. So there's some cancer by my trachea. There's in that medial steinal area, which I've had a previous tumor in. And so that kind of freaked me out, like I don't know why, but I was like, okay, fine, south of the border, down by my liver, by my colon, by, that makes sense to me. But then to see it up as high as my, as my trachea, I mean, it's kind of scary. And the lymph nodes that were there, and the lymph node was glowing brightly. So, and it was enlarged, and so we went over that. But so, yeah, but I will say this: none of those things. A PET scan can do a lot of different things, but there's never going to be where you're trying to find hope and you're trying to find your joy or anything in a PET scan, right?
Yeah.
The PET scan just paints reality, right? That's all it does, and you can't control it. So that's one thing that you have to adjust to, is that reality is reality, right? And that's, there's nothing that you will be able to do to change that. And so you just have to kind of come to accept whatever they find. And then you have to put, some trust and faith, obviously first and foremost in God, but then as he works through the medical staff who have treated cancer like this before, who have a treatment that they think will be effective, and that we've got to get on that, treatment bus, right? And start doing it. And you have to be patient, because it's not like you get treatment and then like in, 2 weeks, everything is starting to go way down, right? It takes a little bit of time. So those are all things that you have to take into consideration. But I started this by saying chaotic. So like, give your perspective on the chaos. I mean, it got pretty crazy with the amount of appointments we had this week.
And some of the appointments, I advocated for myself and said, I have to do that later. I'm working right now. I have to, do that on my lunch break when you bring it up, at a certain time. I had to just, advocate for myself in that instance, but also I've gotten aware when I call in, because of working in customer service, I do a really good job of listing the things, talking about the things I need to do, but also being patient and understanding, there's protocols in place, like insurance has to approve this before they schedule you for this, different things like that. And then most of the time I just say, may you clarify what's going on, or what's the protocol now, so that the worker knows that I'm being kind, I'm being patient, but I'm also nervous and trying to figure this out, because as it's a quickly spreading disease, we want to get your treatment in as soon as possible. So those are the main things.
Yeah, so some of the chaos is our own fault, right? Because we wanted to push appointments and meetings as fast as possible. So it was amazing. I want to give a shout out to UC Health and their team, because I mean, we had a PET scan this morning, today, and we had a consultation with an oncologist, and our oncology team, we had a consultation today. And we asked for it today. It was scheduled for tomorrow morning, but we're like, hey, if we can
we not sleep?
Can we please
try to sleep without knowing?
Yeah, it's, you want information as quickly as possible, right? And sometimes that can happen, sometimes it can't, but they moved heaven and earth to get us the right consults with the right people so that we could understand everything. I had another appointment where I had to have, like, every drug brings what they call like a teach session, which they're telling you about the drug, they're telling you about the side effects, they're telling you what it's going to look like when I arrive in infusion, what that will be like, how long that will be. They drop certain things, like I guess like the first time I have this injection, they're giving me extra drug because they really want it to take hold and do things. So they're giving me more in that dose than they would in future doses and stuff. And so you learn all of those things, and then you ask great questions, and you try to, make sure that you're getting the answers that you need. And then, the nice thing about infusion always is the staff at UC Health has just been amazing to us, because you can kind of lean back on them. They got it under control and they've done this. And so you can walk in and not, for me, a lot of times I don't feel like I have all the answers, or I don't know. I have to kind of do it once or twice, and then I kind of get into a routine. But I don't handle the not knowing, or the not having a routine very well. That's just me. Some people are fine, just like, hey, I don't need to know about that. I just show up and do it. They do whatever, and everything. But they're just really good about, coming in and they've got it taken care of. So at the end of the day, I might be a little stressed, or might not like not knowing the routine, but I can put my trust in that team and how they take care of me. So that's been so huge, to be able to have, access to a team that's that good. So we're always totally excited to see them. It's kind of weird to be excited to see an infusion team, but they've become like family to us. And so many of them are just our close friends. So we love it. Hey, I don't want this to go too long. We've kind of discussed a little bit of kind of what it feels like to go through, but I did want to touch on just the mental health side of things from my perspective, and just quickly touch on, you you fight with God for moments of clarity. You ask those big questions. I know one that is pretty, probably pretty common, but is why. But I think it becomes even more, more of a why this time, because you felt like, hey, we put this behind us. This wasn't supposed to happen. Or could I just get a reprieve? Could I get 7 months? Could I get 6 months? Could I get 5 months? Could I
Yep.
push it off till, next Thanksgiving or something? I mean, like, just something that kind of gives you a break and that you can reload, right? And when that didn't happen, I think my first thing was anger. That's why I asked you, did you have moments of anger? I was just so mad that it just was going to come back this quickly, and then I was going to go right, from surgery back, recovery, and I still have an incision that isn't fully healed, and I'm already restarting treatment. And so, yeah, it was very, it was a few days of frustration, anger, why did that happen, and those things. And so that's always something that I think comes and goes. You don't ultimately, or at least with me, I don't ultimately put the blame on God. I know God is always for me. I know God is always working for what's best. And I also know better than anyone else that sometimes God's answer is no. You can ask for healing, and he can say, no, or not now, or in my time, or translate what that to be whatever it is. I mean, it remains to be seen. But the truth is that I have to come to grips with and be okay with the fact that the answer may be a complete flat on the nose no. And we don't like to talk about that because of the reality. And so we don't spend a lot of time talking about it. But that's kind of how you have to reverse engineer for your mental health. Is you want to start with what is potentially the worst and get your mind around that, and still be able to see God for who he is and yourself for who you are. Because you mentioned a second thing that was like a mental health challenge. So there's anger and there's that frustration and why, but you mentioned too that I apologized. And I think that's my biggest thing, is that part of my why and my anger isn't really to do with the cancer or the treatment. It's more to do with the fact that my family was just celebrating and now they got robbed of that. And so I was mad for them, and frustrated, and crying out to God, like, why put them through this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I think those are the two biggest things that I faced, because I hate to see my family go through it, and I hate to see I hate to see Shara go through that, and have those moments, and we have those uncertainties, and and still do. And the first battle was hard enough. I mean, good grief, brought
Mhm.
in a lot of different things that happened, and so the second battle, could bring, different things. It could bring more of the same, and so that's one of the things that you have to kind of do. So how that translated, and this is the last part that I want to cover, is Shara reached out on my behalf as a good caregiver and told all my friends, you gotta, reach out to Pete, reach out to Pete, reach out to Pete. This is the deal. And they did. And I was naughty. I wasn't ready to talk to them.
It's not bad.
I was,
You
I,
advocated for yourself.
yeah, but I mean, it still feel bad because your friends call and I saw the phone ringing and I saw who it was and I didn't pick up. But I just couldn't do it. And I think that's, not something that happened the first battle, but it happened this battle is I couldn't put a finger on the total reason as to why. Like I couldn't I mean, the best I could sum it up is that I just wasn't ready to process it yet. I was so exhausted and so flummoxed by the whole thing that I didn't want to talk to anyone, right? And I didn't want to answer another, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And not that the fellas that were calling me were going to ask me that question, right? It's all of them are understanding and all of them kind of, know what to ask and different things. But I just didn't want to, like, in that moment of all those appointments and all the uncertainty and everything, it just felt like it was so much to handle. I just didn't even want to talk about it. And I've never experienced that before. And I know some of you are laughing. You're like, yeah, Pete not wanting to talk is like, that's a miracle in itself. But I think that's, that was something that I had to identify with Shara. We had to talk about it. And I confessed to her, I said, hey, I just need to confess to you that I didn't answer the phone when Russ called, and I didn't answer the phone when Billy Gasway called, and people called. I had a tendency not to jump on the phone. And I'm sorry, fellas, but I know you understand and I know you get it. I know that you both, especially those two, have been there, and have probably felt the same. And so I'll do more on how I deal with that, because that's something I'll have to work through and figure out. I want to figure out what all is going on there, because there's something kind of deep at the root of this new challenge that is just uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. I'm avoiding it. I am avoiding it like the plague. And I would say that probably a lot of it has to deal with just through the years being a pastor's kid, and having friends, and family who had a resurgence, and it came back big time, and there wasn't, a third battle.
Yep.
And so I think some of that is tied up in there, that I don't even want to think of that, and I don't want to talk about it. So yeah, that's a reality. And we're always going to be real on stages. So we don't profess to have all the answers. We try to work towards our answers, and when we feel like we find them, then we share them. But I would say I don't have an answer for that one right now. But I would, if you're listening and that this may happen to you, make sure that you go and you text those friends and just let them know, like, hey, I just couldn't talk, like I just couldn't deal with it, so that they understand. And I'm telling you, they'll understand. But then you're gonna have to just prepare to be in a state of questioning and not knowing, and just be okay with it. That's just kind of the deal. So hey, listen, we love you. We've talked your ear off, but I do value so much Shara's perspective and the caregiver. And to you caregivers out there, please, if you ever need help or encouragement, or you want to give some help or encouragement to Shara, just reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook pretty easy. I don't have anybody trying to be me. There's no fake Pete account. And probably, someone might do that to Shara because she's such a rock star, but not yet. So you can find us on Facebook pretty easy, Pete or Shara Heiniger, Heiniger. And you'll find us and just send us a DM, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all have. All right. Love you guys. Have a good one.